Welcome everyone. It is brilliant to have you, and thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope this is going to be just a useful and encouraging little session for you. Obviously, with Robin, exploring some practical tips on video presentation, which I know is a sort of a key thing at the moment, isn't it? And moving forward. So my name is Richard Earnshaw. If you've not met me before, I'm the Digital Social Media Officer for the Diocese of Leeds. And so I work in the communications team, doing social media stuff and digital stuff. And I've been involved in doing a bit of filming as well. So and it's obviously been an interesting, a challenging time the last few weeks. But really delighted to have Robin with us, who's going to start off by doing a presentation. So I'd just like to ask you at this point, if you can, just to mute yourself. It just means when Robin's talking that there's no background noises from any of our screens. So that'd be brilliant. So Robin's going to share a few thoughts, and then once Robin's finished, we're then going to have an open Q&A time. And if you've got a question to ask related to what Robin said, or you make a comment, then that's perfectly fine. And we just want to ask if you want to say something, if you keep yourself on mute, but make yourself known to me. So you can wave if you want, or there is the chat feature if you want to put something in the chat just to say, I've got a question, and I'll try my best to organise it all and make sure that you get to ask the question you want to ask. But yeah, please feel free to use the chat feature as well throughout if you want to make comments, share links, etc. But brilliant. I'm just going to hand over to Robin, and if you want to see Robin in all of his glory, then you can change your screen from gallery view to speaker view, and obviously Robin will be the only one speaking, and you'll just have him, so you'll be able to see him clearly if you want to do that. Okay, over to you, Robin.
Thanks, Richard. It's lovely to see everybody flicking across. What a grand gathering. This is the second time we've done this. And the point is, I am not a great film expert. I just happen to be someone who's been making videos or having videos made around it for about 30 years. So I've picked up tips and ideas. And it's just, the communications team asked if we could do this and if I could just pass on a few. So it's a few practical tips. This is not a fantastic course, how to make a video. It's a few practical tips. And if everybody here finds one or two good tips, that will make a significant impact. I have been watching loads of homemade videos, and I'm really impressed and excited by the possibilities. And what we're talking about today is not so much how to stream a live service. That's a slightly different thing, though there is a crossover. It's much more, how do I make a specific short film or video? Is that okay with everybody? What excites me about this is not just that we all start making videos, but I see it in terms of the shining of the light. So perhaps I could just begin by reading. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill should not be hidden. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lamp stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works. I personally find that a really exciting thought, that hundreds of people are going to start sending out little videos all over the place and shine the light. Perhaps I can just give you two stunning examples. A friend of mine is doing a video every day on a different book of the Bible. Now, many of you will have realized, it seems to me over the last 20, 30 years, we've got a whole generation of Christians who hardly know the Bible at all. In fact, I'm involved with a bunch of young evangelists across the diocese. We're called the E-People. And so I've sent them all the contact for picking up a 6-minute video every day. Can you imagine it? 66 days. But what a wonderful, doable way to find your way into the Bible. Now, in contrast, another example of the power of short videos was a few years ago. I was asked by the Bishop of Bradford to do a church plant into our next door neighbour parish, and it was an area of a lot of new housing, and one thing or another, we didn't know anybody. So we started off by having a service once a month, and every month, before doing the service on a Sunday afternoon, we would put a video out on a Friday afternoon. And all we did was, I just got somebody to hold a phone up, and I talked into the phone for about 3 or 4 minutes. We always try to introduce a sort of a fun element, and hundreds of people would watch these videos within the first 24 hours. So just 2 examples of the incredible power of short videos and how we can use them to shine the light. Is that okay? Now, so I'm going to give 5 tips. I think the best thing, last time I gave all 5 tips, then we had question and answer. I've been thinking about this, Richard. I think it would be better if I do the first 3 tips, then we take a break, and then I do the next 2 tips. Is that okay?
Great, of course it is, yeah.
Now, everybody's going to come back with really technical questions. So I always say there's 2 roles in making a video. There's the person in front of camera and the person behind the camera. So if you've seen any that I've done for our diocese over the last 3 or 4 years, Richard is always the man behind the camera. We go through the whole thing first, we find a good venue, he's behind camera, I'm in front of camera. So these are going to be 5 tips about how we operate in front of camera. But if you want to ask behind camera questions too, but I would suggest that when you're making your home videos, you have a separate person to do behind the camera. If you just set your phone up and talk to the phone, it's very static and it feels static, and you're thinking about too many different things. And so I have my good wife, wonderful, she just waves the phone around for me, turns it on and off, and I just do front of camera, which means I can really get myself into front of camera. Right, 3 quick tips. First of all, before you make your video, just think about the setting, where you're going to do it. The number of vicars that have done communion service from in front of great big bookcases or kitchens, which is fine. Sometimes we need to think, is this a really good... Now, today, because I put a bit of colour on, so I'm operating in a very neutral little environment to help the point. You might like to think, where are you going to sit or stand for your video? You might want to think, are you going to do it inside or outside? Are you just going to sit behind a desk and talk to camera, or are you going to sit in an armchair? I have a friend of mine, he's redone all the start course, and so you can use all the start course with individuals virtually. And he sits in his conservatory in a lovely armchair, and he just looks such a relaxed. So it's not for me to tell you what's a good and a bad setting, but to say, pause and think about where you're going to do it from. Tip number 2, and related to that, think about what you're going to look like. What are you going to wear? Because the whole point about video, this is a visual form of communication. And whether you like it or not, they're going to look at you and me, and within the first 10 seconds, they're going to make some decisions. We all jump to assumptions. And first assumptions, we never make them again. So you might just like to think, are you going to wear a dog collar if you wear one? Are you going to be really sort of cool and laid back and casual? Are you going to be quite smart? Are you going to be absolute hippie? And there are difficult issues. And I got in trouble last time. So all I want to say is this. I really feel that this is much harder for women than for men. Right or wrong, I suspect most people are much more judgmental of women. Now, I'm not telling anybody what to wear, what not to wear, what to look like. What I am saying is, I think it's a great idea to pause and think about it. And it's not that we have to look like anybody else. I just think we have to try and look the best that we can look. So these first two tips, where you're going to do it from, what you're going to wear, how you're going to do your hair, everything else, they're very visual things. So rather than just, right, I've got my armchair, I'm in the armchair, I've put my collar on, bang. Just make, when you just do about 10 seconds of film and then stop. And then look at that 10 seconds and think, yeah, does that look as good as I'd wanted it to look? Is that a good look? Do I need to change it a little bit? Especially little things such as, have I got the lighting right? You know, have I got a really dark half of the face? Alternatively, am I silhouetted against a window so I look like a sort of an appearing angel? Am I completely bleached out? Just look at what you look like. Just make a few alterations. And the most important alteration of all, which is really important in visual communications, is, are you smiling? Are you looking grim? So often we don't mean to be grim, but we're a bit nervous, especially, you know, appearing in front of a camera for the first time is terrifying, quite frankly. So just think about those visual elements. And if you need to make alterations, make them, and then proceed. So setting, personal appearance, third step, then we'll have some question and answer, is a bunch of few things under the basic heading of style. What is going to be the feel of this film? How long is it going to be? I've watched loads of, I've watched a few from yesterday already, this morning. I have yet to see a single video, Christian video presentation, which is too short. However, I've seen loads that were really good, but just a bit, I've made them that are just a bit too long. Never mind, looked at other people's that are a bit too long. If you watch a presenter on telly, you never get a long period of time of a head and shoulders shot. Now, we and our people, we are used to listening, but very few other people are. So think about the length. Think about the sort of the feel. Are you going to sit there with a rather, and there's a place for it, a slow, deliberate, you know, really want to be in touch with people and talk about what's going on? Or do you feel as though, actually, I want to be quite lively. I want, wow, what's happening here? What's happening? Or maybe you want to move from one mode to the other so that you create a real sense of variety. I watched someone just recently, he sat there the whole time. He didn't move a muscle apart from a little bit of eyebrow and mouth, and they didn't move hands or anything. It looked like a living face on top of a statue. So you might want to just think about what's your style going to be. The easiest way to make these things, quite frankly, is to set up a camera or get someone holding a camera and to just look into the camera and do not move at all. But if you do start to move a bit in different ways, it actually begins to get quite a lot more interesting. But the trouble is, it causes problems, like suddenly you don't realize that half your head's gone missing because you've moved around from your original position. Or what I like to do is I like to start off in one position, maybe to sit down, and then to move. So I might have a picture in the corner and I'll just get up and walk across. Now, this really makes it up. But you need to rehearse that, because suddenly an everyday movement, which you've done 1,000 times, as soon as you're doing it in front of a camera, we somehow become very self-conscious. We bump into things, we misjudge distances. So what I do, and at the moment I'm doing mine just in front of a phone. So I do it, and I do them all in one take. Maureen is, and we rehearse in advance. Right, Mo, I'll get to a certain point, and then she'll say, I'll move the camera around like that, and I'll walk over there. But you've just got to walk through it. If you just want to sit down, 3 minutes, bang, send it out. Well, no other professional visual person operates on that basis. Everybody else knows, take your time, think it through, plan your movements, rehearse how you're going to do it, then try it 1 or 2 times, and you get the idea. So movement's really important. We need to, and another thing, little trick. It's not everybody's idea, I know, but I'm all the time trying to break down, the newscaster, head, shoulders for 7 minutes. I try to use props. So the other week I was making one about privatization, social isolation, and I had this prop at the side. So I don't know where I thought of it. I thought of it as a chessboard, and I said, most of my life, my chessboard is so full, and I have characters all over it. All of a sudden, they've all been pushed to the side, and there's just me left alone as a solitary prawn. And I said, oh no, I said prawn instead of pawn. 3 times I described myself as a solitary prawn. But you got to look at it and do it again, do it again, do it again. Get it? We don't have to become perfect. We just have to do things as well as we can do it. We don't have to be as good as anybody else. We don't have to be as good as Annie. We just have to be as good as we can be. So a few thoughts there on style, presentation, movement, making it a bit more interesting. I'm going to do 2 more tips later on, but shall we just break there? And people may well want to come back, make comments or ask questions.
Yeah, we've got 1 comment already, Robin. I don't know if you have any thoughts about this. Julie's just asking, saying that some of us live alone and don't have anyone to move the camera for us or to operate the camera. So that makes it more difficult to be flexible in terms of movement. I mean, I don't know what you think to that.
Yeah, it does. Well, there's no reason why you cannot just speak to a stationary setup camera, but just practice beforehand, Julie. So make sure that you're nicely in the middle of the screen, and you're not chopping off top-wise, and then try to think about, right, I can't move around and the camera can't move around. So I am, excuse me, I am going to try and be as sort of a moving type with my face and voice as I possibly can be. And even though you feel a bit odd doing it, I think it makes it easier for the listener. And that is the key. The key is not, I always like to sit here and talk in my own normal voice. The key is, what is it like for the watcher and the listener?
Yeah, I mean, I just with that, Julie, I mean, it takes a bit of practice, but I mean, you see lots of people do take videos of themselves, and obviously with the smartphones now, you have the selfie mode where you can be holding it, and you do see people sort of, they'll be walking or they'll be doing something while they're holding, and it does look a bit strange when you see people actually doing that sort of filming, but a bit of practice, it can be, quite effective. But yeah, that's one way you could do it, but it does take a bit of practice, I think.
Can I just come back on that?
Yes.
Can I just say that, yeah, I mean, the reason I said that is because you made the comment about obviously having somebody behind the camera. Because some of us, we can't do. What I do with mine is I break mine up with, I mean, on a Sunday, obviously with a song or with a picture or with something. And then when it comes back to me, I may be in a different position. Yes,
that's a great way of doing it. Do you use an editing app for that, Julie?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that sounds great, Julie. I mean, like Robin says, it's, if you've got someone who can operate a camera for you, I mean, that's ideal, isn't it? But if you don't have that, then another way you can change things up is, like you say, you have your shots of yourself, but then you cut to other things, like maybe other people in your congregation doing stuff, or you'll have like a song or a verse or something on screen, and So there's different ways of doing it, isn't there? Stephen has got a question. Do you want to ask that?
Yes. I have what seems to be a slightly limited internet connection, although it's supposed to be fast broadband. And what I'm finding with Zoom meetings and that sort of thing is, if a presenter is keeping their head still, it's fine. As soon as the presenter starts moving their head around, it seems, presumably that involves more bandwidth or whatever, and their face starts breaking up. Now, I don't know how common a problem that is, but is it something we need to take into account?
That, Stephen, is a Richard question.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say for absolute certain, Stephen. I'm not sort of a total expert on this, but like you say, I imagine if you've got a slow internet connection, then that's a problem with that if you're getting that pixelation when you're using Zoom. So I think there's not sort of an easy solution to that, unless trying to get quicker internet if you're doing it on Zoom. But Robin's obviously talking about more pre-recorded things, aren't you, Robin? Like pre-recorded videos, which you won't have that problem with.
But it's still a feature. A lot of these little problems, Stephen, can be sorted out by practicing beforehand. Now, some people clearly think they set up a camera, they give their big video one go and send it out. Well, I mean, frankly, nobody's good enough for that. You've got to be stunningly brilliant. If you just practice it and see the issues and see if the picture's not good enough, if it's breaking down, then you know what you've got to do to alter that.
But yeah, thanks, Stephen. I noticed there's a few people in the comments who are asking about sort of doing film editing on your phone and things. And thank you for those who've shared some of the things that they're using, because I think that's the best thing, isn't it? If some of you are actually using them, then you know that they work well. And I'd encourage you to look at the comments if you wanted sort of using editing tools for your phone and things. I mean, I use one called, I think it's called, let me just find it on my phone. It's Filmmaker Pro, which I found quite good. Filmmaker Pro, and I think you have to pay a small fee to download the app. But I can see that there's lots of suggestions. Like if you wanted some more affordable film editing softwares, like on your laptop, there's iMovie if you have an Apple Mac. There's the Windows Movie Maker. I mean, if you want to go more professional, I personally use Adobe Premiere Pro, but that's sort of a more advanced, and it's a subscription, so it's more expensive. But has anyone else got any sort of other questions they want to ask Robin about what he said? George, go on. I can see you waving.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got into this quite, as an urgent thing, and just stream Facebook stuff. And I do a service, and I do it at the same time as we usually have the service in church. So there's something to be said for actually doing, I know you haven't been particularly talking about services, but there's something to be said for actually doing it live, as it were, at the time when people would be there. Now, of course, because it's just me, there are difficulties with, well, music, some of the actual just kind of organising the stuff for the service. But I just wonder what your take was on that. You don't seem to be very encouraging towards just recording it. And obviously, I've prepared what I'm going to say. I do some singing on my own. I've prepared that. You don't seem to think it's a very professional way to do it, though.
Sorry, George, I didn't mean. I did say at the beginning that we're not really talking about services, more about making of videos. But I do think my son goes to one of these really up for it, singing, dancing, trendy places in London. They pre-record everything. Everything's absolutely top notch. and he says, the trouble is, and he's one of the recorders, he does the music. He says, the trouble is, it all feels a bit dead on a Sunday morning. I'd much rather have something live with mistakes involved, which was less perfect. Anyway, so I think there is a real place, especially in an act of worship, to feel this is alive, this is now. I'm really trying to think about, suppose we're going to make a short 3 or 4 minute video, which really is going to say something, and then we're going to send it out to people. And yeah, my approach is I take various goes at it to get it as good as I can, and never get it perfect. Both in terms of the visual and also the audio impact. And I'm going to come on to talk about a bit more about content in a minute. So there is a place for live, but I also think there's a place for creating something which people are going to find quite captivating when they watch your video.
Yeah, I think like Robin says, it's maybe a great idea to try both. I mean, I think live, as you're doing, George, live video is brilliant. And this weekend, I accessed this online church conference, and that was all live. It was really well done. And so that you had these hosts who were hosting it, and they were live, but it was quite sophisticated. They had the hosts were doing live stuff, but then they were cutting to pre-recorded stuff. So they had like the speakers were all pre-recorded and everything, but like the people hosting it, they were actually there with you, and they were interacting with the comments and people sending stuff across. And it was a real live experience, and that's what you get on things like Facebook Live and YouTube and yeah, so totally encourage you with that. But as Robin says, it's good to then have these other little videos as well. Just
to balance that, Richard, if you make a live video and send it out, and then you look at it, and afterwards you suddenly think, I wish I'd had all my face in this video. It would have worked a lot better. Just little things like that is a jolly good reason for looking at it carefully, planning it, and then doing it as good as we can.
Yeah. But yeah, like all what you're saying, Robin, is very applicable, isn't it, to live video as well? It's very, very transferable what you're saying. So, George, do you want to come back quickly then before we move on?
Yeah, just to say what I do afterwards is have a fairly critical look at it and see what I've done badly. Like, I'm a bit of a fidget with my hands, you know, and I think it's probably very distracting to have me flapping about with books and stuff while I'm talking. So I try and do a crit of it afterwards and remember what perhaps I could improve on.
Great. I know there's a lot on the chat going on about copyright, and I realise that is, yes, it has been a big challenge for a lot of churches, and I've spoken to a lot of people about issues around that. I know we won't have time really to go too deeply into it during this session. I mean, we've just to let you know, we have added a bit of information. There's some information on the Church of England website. I mean, we've put a bit on our diocesan website on our COVID-19 section, on the live streaming section, of trying to just provide a bit of guidance when it comes to copyright. But I realise it's a difficult and a challenging issue, and if anyone's having a particular problem with it, I'm happy to sort of chat to you over email or on the phone afterwards. But some of you are talking about the CCLI license, so that if you're putting services out on social media platforms, then the CCLI streaming license does cover that. So if you're streaming live services, and it covers things like if you've got someone who's doing a live performance of worship as well. So if someone's got a guitar or piano and they're playing worship, then it's under the CCLI sort of song database, then that covers that. But there is other issues with regards to using other music, and it is a real challenge. But I would I just encourage you just to get in touch with me afterwards about that. What do you want to do now, Robert? Do you want to go on to your other tips, or do you want a bit more time?
Yes, can do.
Great.
Okay. tip number 4, or thing to think about number 4, is about content. And content is largely, I think, about what is it I really want to say and what is it they want to hear or need to hear. I'm following 2 video people at the moment. They're both producing a series. The first one, he sent it to me, he says, will you have a look at this for me? And he is sending out about a video to his local community about once every 10 days. And it's basically, it's a simple little gospel talk. It's a proclamation of the good news. It's just saying, you know, Jesus here. And so he's tuned it in. His content is tuned. The other one is a teaching video for the congregation. So the 2 scenarios are going to do a lot about different content. One is to the community, one is to the congregation. One is proclamation, the other one is teaching. So you might like to think, what is it you're doing here? Who are you wanting to reach and what are you wanting to do? I tend to be drawn primarily towards the proclamation. How do we get it out into the world? And at a time of lockdown, I may have some things that I want to say. I might want to use some traditional theology and go on about, you know, sin and repentance, but actually, is that the right content? What are the issues that people are thinking about at the moment? Being alone? Maybe the content, maybe the gospel during lockdown is not you are a sinner, maybe it is you are not alone. God is with you. Maybe the content in lockdown is Jesus is the best friend of everybody. Maybe the gospel is there is a future. We are going to get out of this. There is a future. Things will get better. There is a place called heaven for everybody. So you might want, I'm not telling you, I don't want to tell you what to make the content. I'm just suggesting certain areas to think about. What are the key things that you want to say? Loads of people are making videos about coronavirus and lockdown. And they're saying lovely things about, we're really grateful for these people and they're doing a terrific job and they're doing, and that's fine. But is there a particular distinctive element which we as Christians, as the church, want to bring, which nobody else is talking about? I've been thinking quite a bit lately about, once we get out of this coronavirus, the real big issue we're going to be thrust into, and we were in before, is about the environmental movement, which is huge, especially for young people. And of how we as Christians and Christian leaders and churches, we need to provide a voice. But is our voice going to be the same as everybody else's? Don't throw your plastic away. Be more careful. Recycle. One thing or another. Or is it going to be, what is there an eco-gospel which nobody else can provide into the present climate? So I've been working myself at some stage to do something along these lines of what is the eco-gospel? Not just what is the gospel, what is the eco-movement, what is the world saying, but what do we want to say into the conversation and the debate? There's a sort of a scale on content. Do we provide too much content or not enough content? And you might like to think, where are you on that scale? I hover towards producing too much content. So I have to be aware of that and maybe pull it back a bit. In fact, I tend to think content, a short video, because people, you know, we might like to make a 15-minute video. Many people do make 15-minute videos. Very few people listen to 15-minute videos. People turn off after 1.5 minutes. So I tend to think 1 point, one theme, one idea per video. Now, I have something inside me which is, what do you mean? I've got 5 points that I want to make. Yeah, well, that's just because you're you. Think of the listener, 1 point per video. And then a second little, and this is the final, the 5th tip. And it's especially important towards the end of the video. There comes a moment where if we're really going to communicate, we need to slow down. And of course, when you start doing videos, most of us start talking too fast because we're a bit nervous. Or we go to the other extreme of we're sort of losing it. We go to, you find your nice rhythm, but there comes a moment, probably towards the end, where I think we need to pause. And that pause has got to have a bit of weightiness to it. And you might want to look deep into the camera, because when you're slow, when you pause, and you look into the camera, you are looking into people's hearts and eyes. And make the one big point. I suppose the one big point for me in all this is, we are supposed to be lights to the world. Lights to the world. How wonderful. If you make a video this afternoon or tomorrow morning about a key spiritual issue, send it out. Maybe you will light up one other person's life. Light up their lockdown. Light up their fear, their neck. So you think of your content, and then point number 5 is think about that key moment when you're going to look into the camera and say what it is you really want to say. Thanks, folks. You're great listeners. That was the last of my 5 practical tips. And hopefully there's a bit of something there for everybody. I'm sure we've got questions and comments.
Yeah, I apologies, David. I think you wanted to say something before, but you didn't have a chance because I...
Me?
Is
No.
that right? No. Okay, not a problem.
No, I'm just listening.
Listening.
This is all completely new for me, so I'm just listening.
Perfect. Not a problem. No, apologies, David. Yes, anyone who else wants to make a... Oh, we've got another. Is it another David? Sorry, who wanted to ask something? David Leonard.
Yes, thank you for that. I've been asked to record morning prayer 3 times a week on 3 days, and my cure another 3 days a week. So we're sending that out, making it ourselves, obviously, at home. But what I've got to do next is I've got to prepare a sermon, but I want to add images into the sermon. Do you have any suggestions of what software I can use to add images into videos?
Richard's the man for this one.
Did you? Oh, if anyone else has done that before, please feel free to chip in. As David, so is that a live video? Did you say a live?
No, I'll be recording it to go out on Sunday.
Right. Great. Well, I mean, what you need to do is you need to, I mean, sort of obviously record the bit when you're speaking, and obviously think of the things that Robin has just been talking about. And then if you then want to cut to images or to other things, then you need some form of video editing software to be able to, I mean, you can get some that is very simple to use. It's very user friendly, not too expensive. I mean, you can get some that, and some people have added some to the chat actually of various, there's sort of loads of different options. There's some that you can have on your phone. So like you can download apps. So if you're filming on your phone, and you can just use an app and do it all on your phone, or if you have a computer or a laptop, you can, as I say, you can access quite easy to use, cheap editing softwares. And so, and it can, I mean, if you've got an Apple Mac, for example, that tends to come with iMovie, which is which I recommend. But if you've got a Windows, computer, then again, there's lots of different options. I know there used to be something called Windows Movie Maker. I don't know if that's sort of still around, but
I just find it very hard to try and work out how to do it.
yes, no, I appreciate that. I think to my understanding, you just have to use some editing software. I don't think unless you had the images obviously physically there with you and you were sort of putting them to the camera.
I think that's how I'm going to have to doing it, the way things are going.
I have a little tip here, Richard.
Go on.
Well, the technicalities of the behind camera production are usually, frankly, beyond me. So my methodology is to find someone who can do it for me. And 9 times out of 10, they're often a bright young person or a young person. You'd be amazed. There are people near you who find this as easy as falling off a log and will enjoy doing it.
Fair enough.
So I just get people to help me with it.
Yeah.
Even in lockdown, you can do it. You can send stuff to them, comes back in fantastic condition.
Thank you for that, Robin.
Yeah. But I never realise it is difficult when when you're wanting to do those more advanced things and you've maybe not got someone easily there who can do that. But I think we've just got to do the best we can, haven't we? And like Robin says, you might be surprised. There might be someone who who can do that for you. But just try and do the best you can, really. Next, I've got Caroline. I saw you waving before.
Hi. I was just interested, Robin, you said about length of things that you'd looked at online yesterday for people's recordings. What would you say would be the ideal length for a little service to go up on Facebook or YouTube?
Oh, this length thing, Caroline, this goes back over the 6 or 7 weeks, not just it's impossible to say it's impossible to answer your question. There's no ideal length because in a sense it depends on just on the talker, on the presenter. If the thing looks really good and feels good, you can get away with a bit more. And if you're using your voice, and however, there are not many. I think I would say once we go beyond 3.5 minutes, we are really stretching the envelope.
So if you're going to do something like an online worship, we've been doing Zoom worship as a whole, but now we're branching out into putting something up online as well. Would you recommend that being a shorter thing?
Well, not a 3.5 minute service.
No. A Reader's Digest version of what we do on Zoom, maybe, or it's.
And also, most of the people plugging into your service, they've become trained. We are good at listening to people. We're not typical. No. So you can get away with it a bit more. But I certainly think the sermon, I think for most of us, 6 or 7 minutes. And I just think often less is more. And the poets always understood this. Yeah. They wrote far more than we ever see. Most of what they wrote, they just scrubbed out because it wasn't quite absolutely essential.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Right, thank you. Yeah.
Just is that okay, Caroline? Brilliant. I just wanted to say, Alison's made a really good point, and this is for you again, David. When you're thinking of you wanting to record a video, but then you want to show something, you can actually use Zoom to do this, and obviously you've been able to access Zoom now. But what I'm doing at the moment is I'm recording this session, and if you have a Zoom account, you can record it. So you could have you just on your own doing Zoom, and you could record it. And then Alison's made the point that you can share your screen. So if you have an account, you can then share your computer screen, and you could share a PowerPoint or an image or something. So that's just another suggestion.
Right, thank you. I'll try that.
All right. Julie, you're waving at me.
I am, just because I've done some things on Zoom and recorded them, and it's great if you're just speaking but be very aware that it doesn't do very well if you're trying to record any music for a service. It doesn't come out as well as any of the other platforms that I've used. Zoom is the worst one for music, great for speaking, but it wasn't good for music.
Thank you. No, it's good to hear your experience on that. Bob.
Just to say, you can change your settings on Zoom to make the music sound okay, or better, but you have to do it, everyone has to be muted. There's some advanced settings which help with music and speaking. You just have to find them on your account and go and look through the advanced features and just turn off all the automatic stuff that Zoom does, and that helps a lot.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
I think David was trying to attract your attention, Richard.
Oh, okay, yep. Yes, David, go on.
Maybe not.
Maybe not, sorry.
Not me, no, I'm okay, thanks.
Not me.
Eleanor, I can see with a hand up.
Okay, there were two things. I was going to say that the St Paul's Island Wood, where I'm a member, has, if you want to see example of what I think is quite effective, simple service, okay, it's informal, made of lots of little segments that have been filmed, like Robin has said, not more than 3.5 minutes. The sermon may be a bit longer, but you can go online if you just Google them and see that. I wanted to ask Robin about the first thing that you said about when you made these short videos that were just for the community, where I know you said you've learned more since then, but what sort of messages were you trying to get over to people before you then, you hook them for the service later on?
Well, look, lots of different messages, really. I mean, just thinking of now in lockdown, I made a series of 6 videos, and the link was, they were all called Jesus has got coronavirus. So the central thread was basically, this Jesus shares every part of our experience that we're going through, our fears, even if we are ill. And so that was the central. So I just tried to come up with 6 topics. On the first one, I was painting a picture of my city of Bradford. Then I painted a great big black cloud over it and said, coronavirus has come down, but Jesus is underneath the cloud. Another one, I used the example of the chessboard. Suddenly I'm isolated, I'm all alone. But I said, Jesus is like the king in the corner and he's slowly moving towards me. So each time I had one little idea. I spoke about the woman at the well, how she was not just socially isolated, but whole village isolated, but she was never God isolated, and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Yes, just seen it. Is there anyone, we're sort of going to the last 5-10 minutes. Is there anyone who wants to make a point?
Yes, Richard. Is it Christine?
Yes, that's right. It's me.
Yeah, go on, Christine. Sorry.
Just a very practical point. I'm new to this. I tried it out. I'm not very good in just talking from the top of my head, especially when you're on your own, so you're talking to yourself. So I've written it out, but then when I record it, I have to look up because I do it from the computer. So what is the best way of, when you have a script, where to hold it to make sure that you're not looking up or looking sideways or moving sideways, and just that you keep that contact with the camera?
Well, I don't know that there's one answer to that, Christine. It can be a bit odd. I watched a friend of mine do quite a long, and of course, the longer the video, the more you need notes. And this guy was going on for about a good 10 minutes. and he obviously had a big page of notes just at the side of the camera. So it was almost, it was like watching tennis almost. And it became quite off-putting after. I have another friend who accepts that he needs to use notes, so he sits there in his armchair, he talks to camera, and he has his Bible, and you can just see 2 or 3 pieces of paper with his headings written on, and he just, bam, talk for a minute, glance at notes, talk again. If you use a full text, it's very difficult. So when they read the news, for instance, because I've had to do this, they're staring into a TV set that's got the words on, so they're looking direct at it. But we just haven't got the technology for that. So if you could manage with maybe half a dozen bullet points, which most people, if you're going to speak for 2 or 3 minutes, you could perhaps get away with that. Does that help at all?
Yeah, there's no easy answer. I was hoping there was just a simple solution, but it's
right. The easy answer is try to get it down to half a dozen quick bullet points. But if you need to use notes, then use notes and don't worry about it. But my friend, you see him with his notes on the camera, so he's not looking out over here and pretending to remember it all. And I think that works better.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Christina, I mean, there's some people who commented just in response to what he's saying. I mean, as Robin says, I mean, there's different ways you could do it. I mean, and I know someone who uses an auto cue that they've purchased, and obviously that's quite a sort of technically advanced way of doing it. And you can buy them, and they sit over the camera, and so it's literally you are looking straight at camera, but you've got like an auto cue. But I mean, people.
How much would one of them cost, Richard?
I was just having a little look. I mean, I think you can get them. They're not overly expensive. It'll be in the tens of pounds, perhaps, for like ones for your smartphones and things. But so that might maybe worth if you're going to do a lot of videos, something like that might be worth investing in. But I know some people just, I mean, I've done videos when I have had just literally someone hold a sheet of paper like directly under the camera or on top of the camera, and so you've got the camera there, but then you've got your sort of notes typed out quite big just above it, which you might not be looking absolutely direct, but it's pretty good. But then Alison, thank you again. She's suggested, could you have 2 applications open side by side on your computer? So one side could be your recording, and then the other side would be your notes. So that's like a similar thing, but just having it on your computer. But there's a few suggestions there, Christina, because I know that's probably something that everyone.
But you're right, Richard. If you really need to use a lot of notes, then autocue is the best solution. But you need to practice it a bit because it's a tricky little thing to get used to at first.
Thank you.
Probably got a chance for one last question, or 1 or 2. Maureen.
Yeah, Robin talked about making videos for the community and so on. I know it's a really dumb question, but how do you then distribute them? Do you have them on? How do people know where to find them? Are they on YouTube with a pointer or what?
Well, there's 2 or 3 answers to this. The easiest way is to send it out on Facebook and Twitter, things like that. And if you tip off a few people and say, when this comes, can you send it on to other people? It is amazing how fast it moves. If you're going to do these regularly, you may want to set up your own YouTube channel. And then people can, they can pick up your YouTube anyway, but they sign up to your YouTube channel so they automatically receive it. the challenge is always, how do we break out of the church world and into the world? And the different little ways, for instance, at the moment, during all this, I'm from quite a large family. We're a very good family. And we all, we formed a WhatsApp group. And, you know, so often we think about, you know, church stuff and God stuff in church terms. So I send them everything I produce. And some of them never watch a single minute of it. And some of them open it and clearly enjoy it. So it's about scattering the seeds all over the place, isn't it? If you are in a very distinct community, like a Mythenroyd or a Silsden, they will have their own Facebook. So you can send your material to them, and that will get it out to hundreds, if not thousands of people in the local community.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a similar principle to how would you get a message out there in a physical way. Like if you were organising a church event, I mean, you'd hand out flyers, wouldn't you? Maybe in the street, or you'd go knock on doors, or you'd ask people in your congregation to invite friends, wouldn't you? And it's the same principles really. So if you're putting a video out there, as Robin says, get your congregation people to share them with their friends, which is really easy to do on Facebook, for example, or Twitter, etc. You know, so I'm sure a lot of you have found, but we found in our church, we're putting content out there. We're getting some of our congregation who are sharing it, and we are getting people who are perhaps on the fringes of our church who don't come regularly, or just completely new people online who are seeing some of our content and things. It's amazing, really. I mean, you can get, if you want to go a step further, you can get into the world of online advertising and promotion, where you pay money to then actually push your stuff out. But that's sort of another step forward, really, with that. But,
Richard, we're drawing to a close, but I do feel with all this, as with almost everything to do with evangelism or share of the faith or making contact, we're often more negative and fearful than we need to be. And I think at the moment, there are people who are a lot more interested and open. Another thing that I'm working on at the moment, I'm writing 100 stories about gospel stories with little comments. And I recently made contact with my niece and her husband, because they've just been on a start course. And I said, would you like it because the idea is it's 100 readings about Jesus. Would you like me to send you one a day? And I did this very nervously, thinking, oh, Uncle Rob, give it a rest. You're always banging on about. And we'd absolutely love to get it. Yeah, we'll read it together. That sounds fantastic. I felt like saying, have you heard this? This is about Jesus. I know, we got you the first time. We'd like to get it. There's often a lot more people, or a handful of people, far more receptive than we think. Now, I think that 95% of all the stuff I send out just hits a mental waste paper basket at the speed of light. But every now and again, it hits a human mind, a human heart, and there is an illumination going on. So I commend you all to do this. And after this, you've got to make a video either this afternoon or tomorrow morning and just bang it out and see what happens. It's like learning to draw. You've got to do it to get the end of it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, I mean, I saw and thanks to Robin, it was brilliant. And obviously, if you have any questions or things that you think of afterwards, then please, as I say, contact me. I'm happy to be contacted. And I saw that some people were like saying, oh, it'd be good to have another one of these sessions, but maybe talking just about some more of like the technical stuff and all that. You know, so thank you for that suggestion, and I'll be in touch if we do put something like that on. That might be good to do. But but yeah, and lastly, just one last thing I wanted to mention is that I am actually doing another online. It's more like a training evening, like an online one in a couple of weeks' time, and that is going to be about some more of the technical stuff of creating video. So we're going to look at lighting, sound. We're going to look at like video editing, and we want, we want to welcome people to that as well. So you can, if you want more details about that or to book onto that, you can send me an email and find out more information. That's fine as well. Great, thank you everyone.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody. God bless you all.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Robin.
Bye now.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.